Good morning once again, and thank you for tuning in to our views this morning. Now, this is the favorite part of the show where we get to discuss different issues and different perspectives towards these issues, and would also like your views. We just don't give you our views, but we like your views as well. This morning, what we'll be discussing is, and we posted this on our social media pages, and it says, what are some of the dangers of leaving children with nannies? Yes, what are some of the dangers of leaving children with nannies? Please head on down to our social media page at CTV Uganda and let us know what you think, what the dangers are, what your experience has been. My name is Sandra Kopp, and in studio I'm joined by my colleagues Shivan and Sarah. Good morning, ladies, once again. How are you?
Good.
So what do you think someone should consider? Because we have to work. I mean, we are here this morning, and yes, some of us do have kids, and we have to have people to take care of our children. That's just how life is, because we all have to go there. Even single dads themselves, they have to do this. So nannies are a huge part of our lives, our homes, and some of them have even become family. So what do you think someone should consider when hiring a nanny?
Number one, their health status. It's very important to know that they don't have any chronic diseases or illnesses that could be passed on to your children, in one way or the other. Number two, they should have a clean record. If they have been arrested before or have caused trouble in their community before, I think it's very important that you do your background check and, talk to their family, talk to the LC1, of their area, people within their community. Do your research, because you may be bringing a criminal into your home, and you don't know this.
You're leaving them with
and
your
you're
children.
leaving them with your children. Number three, I think it's very important to understand what it is that they want in the long run, because most of these nannies, while are treated as if, or they feel like being a nanny or being a house help or someone who's coming to help the household is like the lowest of the low. They have been treated like trash, or even people speak of them that way. So you think you need to understand what their long-term goal is. Are they here for a few months? Are they here for a year, a few years? Like, what do they hope to achieve? Is this their end game? And you get to understand what their aspirations are in life, because some might want to go back to school, some might be just handling the situation for now until they go back back to their families or whatever it is that they were doing. So I think it's very important to know where are they going, what is your goal, what is your ultimate goal. Because when you don't have these conversations, you'll have nannies who come for a few months or even a few weeks. They have gotten paid, and they actually were just looking for that money to go sort out another situation. So have those conversations. I think for me, those are my top three. But the other one, the fourth most important one, let them meet your children. And then from there, gauge how they relate with your children. Sometimes children have as if a stronger sixth sense. When they don't like somebody, they're going to quickly distance themselves. They don't know why, you don't know how, but let them meet the children and you see how the child is going to, react around this person.
What's your take, Shivan?
Mine would definitely be, the first one is get to understand, do they have any experience with handling children before? Do they have children of their own? Most times, I remember when I was growing up, my parents always had nannies that also have children, because then you're able to know that, they are naturally nurturers, yes? So get to understand, do they have experience of looking after children? Also, you might want to find out their, their characteristics, their personal traits. Spend time with them before you finally employ them. Get them in an environment where they're together with your kids. Get to understand, how do your kids communicate with her? How does she communicate with the children? Put her in scenarios where you're able to see exactly the kind. You might not get to learn her over one day, but get to understand, is she short-tempered? How does she react when she's angry? You don't want a nanny who reacts angrily and then the next thing they are slapping your child. But also, the nanny that you hire depends on the age of the child. So depending on how old your child is, you may want to get a nanny in accordance to that. Like if your child is really young, like about a baby, not yet even walking and probably crawling, you may want to get someone who is maybe more elderly, yes, may be able to do that, to get the job done as well. So I think you should consider the experience, the age of the child as well, their personal traits, and also their values, like what values do they stand for, what principles do they stand for, and what do they want beyond just being a nanny in life. So very important.
Yes, true. Well, let's look at some qualities to consider when choosing a nanny. And the ladies have mentioned a couple of these. As you can see, love of children, that should be a no-brainer. Yes, a love of children. Sometimes you find a nanny, and she doesn't like children.
Yeah, then why are you here? Exactly.
And very many are like that actually. And you wonder why.
They're very standoffish. So I think as a person who is going to hire a nanny, you should read between the lines. If you see this person, like what you said, the demeanor and everything, you can imagine when you're not in the house, what is happening. You know, they are neglected and everything. And another very important one is to also assess your needs. Your needs as the person who is going to hire this nanny. What do you need this person to do? What is their job description going to do? I think most of the time, we just glide over and we don't go to the nitty-gritties of what we expect. Because if you don't let someone else know what you expect, how are they going to give you what you want? You have like to spell it out, and because every home has its own culture and every person has different parenting skills. So the way they handle, maybe they handled where they were before is not probably the way that you want it to be handled there. And another thing with experience that I've really encountered, when someone tells you they have experience with children, it doesn't necessarily mean that they do. When someone says, oh, I have children of my own, it doesn't necessarily mean they have experience, even though they have children. Because you see what happens, some of these ladies, they have their children, but since they're out working, they leave their children with their mothers. So their mothers raise these children, and they don't have experience, and you end up having this person in your home and you're observing them, and they clearly have no experience with children, but they do have children. So it's not always automatic when someone says, oh, I have children, and automatically you think, oh, they have experience, they have children. The questions that you should be asking is, how old are your children? Where are they? Yes, to just gauge and see if they have this experience. And of course, background check is very, very important.
Absolutely.
They have to have an LC letter, an ID, they have to have all this. And other things just to glide over, they have to be at least fun to the kids, they want to play depending on the age of the kids. Sometimes you find the kids there and they're crying and they're like toys around or coloring books, and they're just not doing anything. Why don't you pick out some colors and color with them? Child care is not just about bathing them, feeding them, and then you just leave them there. It goes much more to also their cognitive skills and development. So they're supposed at least to play a part into this, like what you would do, help them with homework, do something fun, because kids love to play and everything. And if this lady is coming and going, you need someone punctual. That can really throw you off, like if you have to leave early in the morning and you have something to do. And also someone you can trust, someone who is flexible. That's very important.
Absolutely.
Because you can find some people and they are so rigid, they're not flexible, and this can become really, really something. And of course, communicative and reliable. But I feel one area about nannies that is often overlooked, apart from all these things, is their ability to administer first aid.
Yes.
Most of them are clueless. Especially when you're dealing with infants. They're very clueless, and many employers, they don't consider this at all. And there are so many places within Kampala, even outside Kampala. If you just go to Google and you just Google and see, you can actually take your nanny there for a crash course of first aid, because you know how it is with kids. Maybe they leave things lying around and the kid has drunk bleach, or he puts a fork into the socket, because many people here don't baby-proof. Yes, so all these things can happen. You've had instances of near drowning of children. Choking is the most common because of the little things they find, and all these things can actually kill your child. And it would take like what, 2 minutes, suffocation?
Yes.
And the child something really bad can
Absolutely,
happen.
it's very important. But then again, you're saying nannies don't know first aid, but how many Ugandans know first aid? How many? I mean, everybody is a lot more, relies more on social media. Oh, my child has a high fever. What do I do? Hello, go to the clinic. Why are you telling us? There's no time.
Time is
But
of the essence.
It's very important for everybody to have to learn the basic first aid skills and also have a first aid box in their house. But also one thing that we didn't talk about, one thing to consider is values and religion. Because you want to have somebody in your house who is going to be in accordance with the values and morals that you're trying to teach your child. And also for some people, this may come off as maybe discrimination against religion, but it's also important. So for instance, if you're in a Catholic family, Protestant, whatever your religious affiliation may be, it's important to have somebody who is going to come and somehow endorse those values as well. And if you don't mind, you can definitely have someone with different religious values, but they should have the same moral code and principles as you would like to teach your child, because children are very impressionable, and you're not around most of the time, and they're with this person, so you don't want to come home and find your child that's converted and you're like, hello, what's happening? Hello, what happened when I was away? So yes, that is also important. But the first aid one, yes. And we always think that it is common sense. If you have a nanny in your house and you have a swimming pool and she can't swim, take her for swimming lessons, that in the event that your child may fall into the pool accidentally, she's able to do something about it. All these things, washing machine, whatever gadgets you have in the house, teach them how to use them. Because many times you throw them and bombard them, and then the next thing they're under a lot of pressure, they don't know what to do, and now you're losing your cool with them, and yet they just simply don't know.
True. And let us look at child emergencies that you have to keep in mind. There's near drowning, like I said, household poison exposure. This is very, very common.
Yes.
When you have people living around bleach and liquid soap, these kids, they just come and drink this stuff.
And
electrocution.
Another thing, children love to insert everything in their nose and ears. The beads, the beans, the peas, the stones. They're like, what is wrong
you
with
have to you have to keep them keep them away from that. I remember when we were sick of COVID at home, and we had someone come over, and this guy had like the earbud, the swab. So he put it in our noses for the swab.
Yes.
And the toddler was watching intently, like, okay, what's happening? A few days later, it was I think like a week, I found him putting an earbud into his little brother's nose. He wanted to put it there by force. And this one can't talk.
Yes.
So can you imagine? I had to throw away all the earbuds in the house because I could not convince him that they are not for the nose. He saw them swabbing us for COVID. And it's like, once they see,
done.
He could not. So you just have to be so vigilant with these children. Yes. And then there's suffocation, of course. Sometimes kids play as well, and they don't mean harm, and they play like with pillows and duvets, and a child can't get suffocated. They don't know what they're doing. Other accidents as well, like falling, insect bites, things like that, and choking. Of course, choking is the most common one in kids. And we have to keep in mind that first aid is very important because it preserves life, it prevents deterioration, and it promotes recovery, of course. But let's look on the flip side. What are the telltale signs that your nanny is abusing your child? What do you feel are the telltale signs?
When your child does not want to be around this person, that is a telltale sign. When your child has become withdrawn, that's a telltale sign. When your child is losing weight, another telltale sign. When your child has unexplained bruising or wounds, that is also another telltale sign. But one thing is, sometimes you can never know. You can always miss the signs and just think that it is your child who is just being clumsy, or your child is sick, or whatever the case may be. Because the nanny can decide. Some of them are very pretentious. You come home and they are so sweet, they cater to you, and they're making your life a lot easier. You understand? Rather, you think that they are. But let's teach our children to learn to talk and be vocal. Let your child, the minute you walk into the house, mommy, this happened, then this and that. Let your child, allow your child to be expressive and don't be dismissive. I know it can be very hard. You go back home from work, it has been a long day, you've been so stressed out, and you're quick to tell your child, leave me alone, I want to rest. Have the first 30 minutes when you get home, talk to them about their day, school, how the nanny treated them, and it's important to ask their opinion on how they feel about the nanny. Do you like her? Does she take care of you? Does she beat you? Does she pinch you? Does she touch you in a way that you don't like? What does she do when I'm not here? Let your children talk, and when they tell you, believe them. Don't be dismissive. Believe them. And when they tell you that, go on to do your own investigations. We saw footage back in 2013,
Yes.
14. It was like,
It was so disturbing.
it was so disturbing. Many families were releasing footage of their nannies mistreating and abusing their children. So it's also important, if you can afford to install surveillance, do so, or save towards doing that, so that you can have an eye on your child all the time, 24/7, and you can even, check on your smartphone, keep on checking
directly
up
to
on
your
them.
smartphone.
But I also think it's very important in my perspective that you hinted on something very profound and important. I understand that as parents, we have to make livelihood, we have to earn a living, we have to put food at the table at the end of the day, yes? But take time off your busy schedule, sit down and talk to your children. Find out how their day was. Because if you come back from work and the next thing you're doing, you're showering, you're eating and going into bed, you'll never realize that your child is being victimized. If you're not, take time off your busy schedule. Once in a while, bathe them. That's when you'll be able to see the scar that and you're like, what happened now? You have a bruise here. But if you're not involved in their day-to-day life, you can never tell some of these signs, because some of these signs are physical. Some of them are mental. Understand your child. Is your child more withdrawn? Do they wail more than they used to, especially when you're leaving and going to work and you're wondering, okay, they are throwing tantrums, they're throwing their feet, my child is not like this, then there's something wrong. But also sit down and monitor. One day just sit down and monitor and see, how does the maid treat the child, but also how does the child react whenever the nanny is, around. Are they scared? Do they want to hold back? Don't they want to let go? Then you realize that actually something is taking wrong. But for me, the most important is to spend quality time with your child on a day when you're not going to work. Then you realize that something is actually wrong somewhere. And especially when it comes to physical abuse, you're able to tell if you yourself go ahead to dress your child, you're bathing them, you smear them lotion, that is when you'll see that, oh, there's a scar here. Talk to them. If they don't want to open up, then there's something wrong somewhere. But also, Sarah did highlight it. When a child comes and says, Mommy, this and this happened, listen, because that is a red flag already. The question is, are you providing a safe environment for your child to talk? But also as a parent, when your child has told you something, do not immediately go and, attack the maid, unless you're planning to attack them, and then you let them go. But if you're going to attack the maid and then you leave the maid there, the nanny will definitely take it out on the child,
Yes.
So we need to be very careful with also as parents how we handle the situations when it comes to nannies and the people that help us around. When it comes to children, if a child has reported their nanny, you need to handle it very diplomatically, because the next day you go to work, you'll find your child in an oven.
Absolutely.
You'll find your child beaten. It's terrible. So handle it in the most majestic way that she's not even able to tell that it's a child who reported her, unless you're actually sacking her from the job.
And also, I think before we even talk about nannies and crucify them for being sometimes the most horrible beings on earth, I think we need to also take initiative and ask ourselves, as an employer, am I treating my children's nanny with dignity and with respect? Because sometimes they are lashing out at your child because of how you are treating them. So do your part to be a decent individual or a good employer, and then remove that out of the equation. Say in the event, God forbid, they harm your child. First take that out, do your part, and then, take on the precautionary stages. But having nannies is very it's very scary. Having to leave your child with somebody you barely know,
Yes.
You barely know. No matter how much research you have done, you could have an encyclopedia of them, but that is all, you know, just theory of who they are. It's only time that will tell who they actually are. It can be very, you know, scary.
Well, other telltale signs that your child is being abused by the nanny is an inattentive or disinterested nanny. And if your child also has difficulty in sleeping, this could also be another sign. They keep on having nightmares, they're afraid, they can't sleep. That's another sign. And also signs of poor supervision. When you come home and the house is in a mess, that means your child is not being well taken care of. And that's how they end up probably choking or drinking poisonous substances. And general unreliability. You try to call your nanny, you're away from the house, and they're unreachable. They always have an excuse. But let's look onto monitoring nannies, and Sarah did hint on this vigilance. You have to be vigilant, at least send someone over to check on your children when you're not there, and also surveillance. Having a nanny cam. Nanny cams became very, very popular, where you can check on your children even just from your smartphone. These are some of the ways, and of course talking to your child. And when your child talks to you, believe them. Believe them. Well, let's look at some social media reactions concerning this post that we posted. What are some of the dangers of leaving your children with nannies? And Warren Chris Bulime says some nannies have habits that these children can learn from them. Let us say bad habits. Nannies can have very bad motives towards the family, and openly giving them access to children can be the beginning of a family downfall. They come to kill and destroy. That is character or personality. And lastly, the silent journalist says, in most cases, they adopt characters of the nannies. If they are bad, that's what they will follow. And Sarah did mention this. Well, right before we go to our next conversation here on Our Views Too, Sarah will leave us with some parting shots. Yes, Sarah.
I just wanted to say, the point of poor supervision when you come and find the house a mess. Listen, taking care of kids is a full-time job. I would know. But as long as the child is fed, is clean and healthy, I think that should be the biggest priority. So when you come home and find the house is messy, believe me, sometimes that lady, that poor lady, has cleaned it 16 times. But for every cushion she puts up, 6 cups have been broken. The sugar has been spilled. So I think you should focus more on your child's health and well-being, because sometimes a messy home is a happy home for children. Okay, you should be worried when you come home and you find your 3-year-old is seated in the corner. You should be very worried when you come and find the house is so neat, there is no mess, and your toddler is just seated there in one place. That is not a good sign. If it is messy,
well, that was all we had for you on Our Views 1 this morning, but don't go anywhere, because Shivan will be right back with Our Views 2. Don't blink.